Welcome, Mr. Spector. Of course,
Mr. Spector. When did I become Mr. Spector?
right now,
Okay.
right here.
All right.
Of course, famed creator of franchises like Deus Ex and Thief and System Shock. But I'm going to say you were one of the creators. It's a teamwork, right?
Exactly. It's all about the team. People sometimes think I make these games all by myself, and I just put my head down on my desk and wait for blood and ideas to pour from my forehead. And it just doesn't work that way. You got to be surrounded by a great team.
Oh no! Now you sort of destroyed my whole vision of it going
Uh-oh.
down. That's terrible. But I'd like to start out with the return to System Shock because this is such a sort of fundamental game for where the industry is today. But it's been lost for the ages. And how did it come to be that you're back working at System Shock, and what attracted you to go back there?
Well, what attracted me to go back to System Shock was the richness of the world. Back in 1994, we released a game that had amazing characters. It had a really rich, deep story. It had a setting that I think and thought at the time was really compelling. A world that was believable. I mean, one of the things I love about System Shock is that it's a believable world, not just a random collection of corridors where you shoot things. So the richness of the world certainly appealed to me. And there are some unanswered questions in the fiction that I thought would be fun to come back to as well. So there was all that. And then Paul Neurath, my partner at Other Side Entertainment, who right now is working on Underworld Ascendant, a rebirth of that classic franchise, he came to me and just as a friend said, hey, you know what? I got the rights to make new System Shock games. And he was just telling me as a friend, but half jokingly I said, you know what? I should make that for you. And a couple of weeks later, he called me back and said, you know, you should make that for me. And I thought about it for about 3.5 seconds and said, okay, I'm in. Let's make a new System Shock game.
Sounds great. Completely organic. But you know, you briefly touched on that. You know, you have some unanswered questions. What's the vision for this game? What's the premise? What are those unanswered questions?
Well, I'm not going to tell you everything. It's we're still in concept phase and it's a little early. But what I can tell you is from a fiction standpoint, Showdown, the malevolent, super intelligent AI, is coming back. We have to know what happened to her. That's one of the big reasons to make a new System Shock game. What's Showdown up to? Some of the characters who survived, there were 5 characters who survived the first and second System Shock games. And anybody who's watching this, try and see if you can figure out who those 5 characters are. So we'll do some exploring about what happened to them. Citadel Station, the setting for the first game, seemed to have been destroyed at the end of the first game, but maybe not so much. Citadel will be coming back. So from a fiction standpoint, I think existing fans of the game, and there are still plenty, which freaks me out. I mean, after 23 years, the idea that people still care is pretty amazing and another reason to come back to the game. But I think it'll be fun for those players to see what happened to those old characters and Citadel Station and Showdown. But for new players, people who've never even heard of System Shock, I think it'll just be a great story. So fiction, we got that covered. From a gameplay standpoint, I think there's a lot to do too. System Shock was one of the very first games that was built on top of a simulation, physics and a rule set that players could sort of interact with. It was, at the time, a very deep simulation, but now not so much. So I think we can take what we learned in the last 23 years and really take System Shock to a whole new level.
It is funny because it's like one of those games that has spawned the most spiritual successors, if you will, games that have been inspired by it in some way. And we talked about what sort of defines success in this industry, and of course, the immediate thought goes to sales, but that is also some sort of measure of success, right? How much you influence other games.
Absolutely. There are all sorts of ways to measure success. Some people measure it by sales and revenue, which is related to sales, obviously. Some people, define it differently. one of the measures of success that I find most appealing is influence. I mean, okay, maybe I'm an egomaniac. I don't know, but I just really enjoy the idea that I've had the privilege of working with teams in the creation of games that have kind of stood the test of time, and that other developers look at and say, hey, I should do something more like that. And so clearly over the years, we've seen plenty of games, BioShock. If you ask Ken Levine, he'll tell you that System Shock was an inspiration to him when he actually was the lead on System Shock 2, and certainly BioShock shows some resemblance to the original System Shock games. Prey just came out. You can certainly see the influence there. I think those guys would admit it if you ask them. So there have been plenty of games influenced by System Shock. The interesting thing is, a lot of people ask me, so do you take ideas from those games that influenced that were influenced by System Shock?
So.
Well, here you go. Okay, so the answer may be strange, but it's not really. I mean, my team and I, we've all played many, if not all, of the games that showed the System Shock influence. But for me, when I look at something, another game, I usually say, hey, they did this thing. Let's make sure we don't do that. They already did it. So let's try something different. Let's do something no one's ever seen before.
So that's what we can expect from System Shock 3 then, something you've never seen before.
Well, without going into detail, there's at least one thing that is pretty crazy, pretty insane. I have no idea if it's going to work, but no one's ever seen or done it before. I'll say that.
All right. So obviously at this stage in development, normally you wouldn't be talking to me. Normally there'd be like a lot of people telling you not to say anything about the game at all. But what does it offer you to sort of get out there with the game early and start sort of communicating with fans and letting people know that this is what you're thinking about? You're trying to come up with System Shock 3.
Well, as a gamer myself, and before I became a developer, for sure, but even as a developer, I want to go behind the scenes. I want to know what's going on. And so the opportunity to talk to fans directly, which used to be very hard. I mean, when I started, it was not easy to reach your fans. And there were lots of barriers, usually publishers, but we won't talk about that. But now there are very few barriers. So you can go right to your fans, right to players, and engage with them early, which is really exciting. You can find out what they like, what they don't like, what they think, what they feel, what they want to see in the game. And you can respond directly to that sort of input, which is awesome.
Sure is. But what does that leave you sort of in? Because this is also the sort of game where you don't want to talk about everything, and maybe you don't want it to be sort of the direction of it to be steered by committee or by a bunch of people or like the majority will, because it sort of needs to be as well sort of a singular vision as well.
Oh, for sure. Don't get me wrong. I'm not a believer in design by committee. I'm a big believer in collaboration with my team because they're going to come up with great ideas, usually better than mine. But it's definitely not designed by committee, and you can't really have fans design the game, but you can get input from them about what you're thinking. It's still, you're right, there has to be a singular vision. I don't want to get too geeky here as a developer, but my role, as I see it, is to design the creative box, and that's the sort of creative world in which the game lives, and the team fills it in, okay? But you can fill it in and take ideas from the outside. You can take ideas. I'll tell you, I'll give you a perfect example. I've got my box. I kind of know what the game is going to be at the high level. But I had a meeting with the guys at Starbeeze this week, and we were just brainstorming about a bunch of stuff. I got 8 pages of notes. 8 pages. That's really going to influence the game. It's not that I'm compromising my vision or my team's vision, but you can get great input from the folks at Starbeeze and from gamers as well.
But some of those ideas maybe didn't make it onto those 8 pages then.
No, every idea I got from Starbeeze is in the game now. No, you don't take everything, of course.
Of course not. So in terms of the team you're building, what can you tell us of that? Sort of where are you at in development?
We're still pretty early. We're in the concept phase. We're pretty far into concepting, actually. You know, that's where you decide what game you dream of making. It's a really a dream vision. And I've been working with my tech director Jason Hughes, my art director Arturo Palacio, and my lead designer Chips Brogna to create that wonderful ideal vision. Pretty soon we'll be transitioning into pre-production. And that's where reality smacks you in the face, and you figure out what game you can really make. But you know, there are some key elements that are just core to the experience that you just can't compromise. And so you prioritize those early in pre-production. You know, you take your biggest risks. You prototype like hell, and at the end of pre-production, you know how you're going to build the game, and then comes the grind of production, where all the assets get generated, where all the levels get built, where all the story elements get incorporated, and then finally the game ships. And if you're lucky, it's still the game that you imagined. I mean, when I start thinking about a game, I really do this. It's just sad. I sit back and I close my eyes and I imagine the game that's going to come out in 2 or 3 or however many years, and it always ends up completely different. but in the best cases, every detail can change, but it's still the game you envisioned when you started. That's the magic of it. Teams make games better, details change. But if you've got a strong vision at the start, that carries through. You open your eyes, and there it is, the thing you dreamed of. It's a magical thing when that happens.
All right. And so far, we can only dream of that, because today we're not showing you any footage or anything of System Shock 3. We're not there quite yet. So